talking to employees about techniques in
Mhm.
sales. And what I want to do, you read the host, so MC. You read
Okay.
that, and then I'll read the employees asking the questions.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, go ahead. MC.
Thank you for your attention, everybody. Now, I would like to conclude this orientation session by answering your questions. Let's start with you in the front row.
Thanks. What do you feel is the most important thing to remember when dealing with customers?
Great question. Our philosophy is based on trust. We want to establish a trusting relationship with our clients. We strive to work hard with a lot of effort to build that trust so that the client can easily do business with our company.
And what about difficult customers? How do you suggest we approach that challenge?
Okay, that is always a tricky situation. Unfortunately, there is no golden rule for how to handle tricky situations. I would advise you to listen to the customer and try to keep them calm.
Are there any other challenges that we should be aware of before we begin?
One of the difficult things for our new employee is time management. Sometimes you are given some heavy project, so you have to delegate your time in more aggressive way. I recommend you talk to your supervisors for advice on those matters. And if there are no more questions, I'm going to wrap things up here.
All right, excellent. Okay, so that was pretty good. You've got a very strong voice. You've got a very elegant sounding voice, so that's pretty cool. I noticed though, and one thing, and this is relatively common for people who grew up speak in India. You do tend to put the stress of the syllable accent on other syllables than is accepted in our language. As an example, um, where was it? Somewhere you said, yeah, right here, situations. Now, generally, um, the accepted way to pronounce it is the accent on the third syllable, situation, situation, because you had
Mhm.
said situation.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things for you to overcome with practice is just the acceptable manner of pronouncing words with several syllables. So
Okay.
that will help you a lot too, and that also blends in well with the natural rhythm
So
of
how do we
speaking.
know which syllable to stress on?
Well, it's a case. See, that's tricky. It's funny because right here it says, unfortunately, there is no golden rule. Um, it's like grammar. I teach ESL often to people who are not fluent in English, and they always ask me about grammar, and I tell them, please don't pay attention to it because it distracts you. You're thinking about rules and you're missing the rhythm and the flow of the language. The problem, though, is like grammar, every rule has a bunch of exceptions. So it's like it's always like this, except for then. So it's the same thing with learning to pronounce these words. Like the dictionary
Mhm.
does spell things phonetically, and it does put the accent above the stress, but it would be a massive waste for you to just go through a dictionary with me and read it, right? So that's one of those things where there is no absolute rule about anything how to pronounce, but basically it's about getting acclimated, becoming accustomed to hearing these words. So you have to do a lot of listening in the class and also instinctively speaking and reading them. So yeah, there's a lot of reading practice. So like to answer your question, how do you know which syllable gets the emphasis? The only real answer I have is that that's what communication is when an entire society comes to the agreement that this is how a certain word sounds, or else we have no communication. So that's it. It's just a case of practice, practice, practice.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I do use a lot of examples that challenge all of the sort of roadblocks that each individual student faces. So there is that. I tend to find that the Indian rhythm, the Indian accent, it does sound a bit like the raga music. Um, it's like very up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down like that. Which is I like it, but it's a little bit different. The North American way of speaking generally is kind of just straight out, straight out, almost almost lazy in a way. Now, not to, if there's a positive way to say that, I would suggest that we tend to soften the edges of certain words, cut through them, we grind them down, and it all comes sort of right straight through the middle here. Um, we don't have a really big animated way of speaking things, so we tend to be guttural almost, and there's not a great deal of movement. Other languages move around a lot, but ours is pretty straight out. And I'll give you I'll give you an example. Generally, hard consonants don't get repeated. Well, here's a very common one. So, how would you say this?
Black coffee.
Okay, good. Yeah, you got it perfectly. All right. Many students pronounce both the K sounds. They say black coffee, and we don't. In our vernacular, we essentially say this: black coffee. We don't pronounce the two K sounds in a row. Similar, and there are endless examples of this sort of thing. If I put that, any normal person would see it and think, okay, it says day to day, day to day. But we don't pronounce it that way. We pronounce it like this: day to day. This is what I mean by often cutting off certain aspects of words, and also sometimes softening words just through the casual nature of our speaking. We don't say little, battle, better. We don't say that. If it was phonetically spelled, we say little, battle, better. So this is what I'm trying to illustrate by the fact that we are very casual with how we speak. We soften a lot of edges of words, and we cut a lot out. Just a couple quick other examples. Now, if these were spoken like they are spelled, then it's far too formal to really say. I don't think I've ever said, oh, this is very comfortable. I'm hungry. I would like some vegetables. We don't do that. So we essentially, if I do it phonetically again, we say comfortable. And we don't say vegetable. We say vegetable. So these syllables, the OR, or the O, and the E, and the A, they're cut right out. We don't, so comfortable, comfortable, comfortable. So we have a whole different sound when we say the word, and vegetable. So these are often the trick to embracing or falling into step with the rhythm of casual speaking. Now, the way I'm talking to you, it's pretty normal speed. I don't think I'm slowing down too much. I would likely speak quicker if I was out casually talking with a friend or something like that. But for the most part, the tempo at which I'm speaking is the the general way that a North American English speaker sounds. And it does have a rhythm, but it is not particularly enunciated. Now, one of the exercises that I do, or that I recommend to my students, it's an old theater trick. So when you get a moment and you've got like a little paragraph to read, preferably something casually written like a newspaper article, nothing too academic, something more casual. It's very beneficial to enunciate every word you say for practice, because what that does is that helps you really hear where the sounds are created, and it also works out your muscles. So it loosens the tension, and it kind of dispels some nerves. The sounds we make when we speak, it's the throat, the tongue, the jaw, the teeth, and the lips. So it's those five components that work together as a machine to make the sounds that are recognizable as a language. Now, it's very different, as I was pointing out, the V and the W, or the L and the R for Chinese people. Sometimes making these sounds is foreign to what you are accustomed to, the way you grew up. So, and it looks ridiculous, like that is always a tricky situation. Unfortunately, there is no golden rule for how to handle tricky situations.